This is Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hey guys, I'm hoping we're not having some streaming issues. We are on location, but welcome to Back Talk, the premier podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine, featuring in-depth conversations and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. We are ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot. I'm your host, Janice Robinson Celeste. Imagine though, if the rules at school suddenly changed, making it harder for some students to learn or get the help they need. That's what might happen in the next few years. Because of changes planned by our government, it could make it more difficult for schools to get money, for families to afford healthcare, for people to have fair chances at jobs. Some programs that help families might even be taken away. It's like playing a game where the rules are changed halfway through, but only some people get better chances while others are left out. That's why it's so important to understand how these changes can affect families and to find ways to work together to make these things better. On today's Back Talk, we're going to give you a sneak peek of what to expect as a parent and especially as a Black parent during the next 4 years of the Trump administration. So let's get into it. Now, before we actually talk to our guests today, I need you listeners out there to go ahead and spread the word about the show because we are live. And I need you to know you can post questions under this video and I will answer your questions live with our guests, but you need to do it early. So tell your friends, shout it out to your followers because sharing is truly caring. And don't forget to use hashtag BackTalk when you post. Now let's get into today's show. On this episode, we have CEO and author, Dr. Lynell Plummer. She is the founder of the Onyx Therapy Group. Welcome to the show, Dr. Plummer.
Hey, so happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, the work you do at Onyx Therapy Group?
Absolutely. So again, Dr. Lynell Plummer, the CEO of Onyx Therapy Group, extremely happy because I am now the department chair at Trinity Washington University. So if you know folks who want to be counselors, send them my way. So I came into the mental health field. I think I've always been considered a counselor or a therapist. Growing up, I didn't know that was a term. You know, I thought I was going to be an attorney or maybe I was going to be a forensic psychologist. Therapists and counselors were not necessarily terms that we used in our neighborhoods when I was growing up. But I've always been the person that people have come to talk about some of their challenges and their issues. So imagine me on the little recess playground, taking clients by the slide and talking and giving advice. As a therapist now, I don't give advice, but I do guide in terms of who a person wants to be and how they want to be. So I've always been this way. And then as I got older, I realized that there was a profession, an occupation that was really centered on what I naturally enjoy doing and what I think that I am purposed to do. And so having gone to Howard University, 2 degrees from Howard University, I landed here in professional counseling. And I've been doing this work for about 20 years now and really enjoying it. I started the Onyx Therapy Group 12 years ago. We just celebrated our 12-year anniversary on Saturday. So super excited about that. And I started it at the time with my best friend. She's still my best friend. I don't mean at the time. She's still my best friend. And
best friend.
Right.
I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
We changed the structure a little bit, but if she's watching right now, she's going to be like, at the time, best friend. No, girl, we are still best friends. But started it because there was definitely a gap in high quality mental health services being provided to the Black community. My career started work in a school, working with children. So my dedication has always been to our youngest population. But in doing that work, I recognize that it's difficult to counsel students without providing services to their parents and without providing services to their family members and providing services to folks that influence their lives. And so from there, Onyx Therapy Group started, and we've been rocking and rolling. We are in multiple states now, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania. We are also international in South Africa. And we are a team of 34 Black folks out here doing the work that we are purposed to do.
Wow, that you are doing it, and I really appreciate it. We're going to be talking about today mental health care and maintaining your mental health through the next 4 years of policies that the government's going to, kind of change dramatically. Like things we know will not be the same. So
Yeah.
I'm going to need to pull from your expertise for that. Like, how do we just maintain and how do we stay sane through it
Yeah.
all? Want to go back to the history of the last time we had Trump in office, and some of the things that happened. And I'm not trying to be political here. I'm just going to go by, but what they're saying. It's
Yeah.
on their website, okay? So don't be thinking I'm making stuff up. It's on Trump's website what he's changing. If you don't know, you better go get to know. Go find out, okay? Because it's on his website what we're talking about today. So we're not making stuff up here, okay? So no fake news, all right? I just need to say that disclaimer, guys, because I know sometimes people get kind of like excited. We'll just say overzealous.
Overzealous.
So, in your opinion, how do you think the new government policies might affect the mental health of Black families, especially parents? Because we always are concerned about our kids.
Yeah, I think it happens on a couple different levels. I was just on a board meeting and that's centered on education, and I was saying to them something similar that I'm going to say to you, and that as parents, the moment for many parents, the moment they realize that they are pregnant and that they are about to give birth, there's something different that happens in their bodies, right? It's something different that happens in their mind. There's additional stress levels that kind of come up. We get worried about things. We're a little bit more predisposed to some anxious thoughts because we don't have to just take care of ourselves, but we have to take care of somebody else. And in cases that we have multiple children, that spread across different environments, right? With these different little humans that we have in our lives. So there's a couple things that happen to us when we get worried. First, our nervous system changes a bit, right? That's why when people do mindfulness or they do deep breathing, it's focused on how we breathe, how we are inhaling, and that calms our nervous system, our actual physiological nervous system. But on the mental health side, when we get nervous and we start to worry, we start to have anxious thoughts. Now, anxiousness is different from anxiety. Anxiety is the mental health disorder that is connected to anxious thoughts. But sometimes people are just anxious and they say, oh, I have anxiety. Oh, don't do that to yourself, right? Don't diagnose yourself when it's not necessary at that moment. But we see that there's an increase in anxious thoughts because we start to worry about the future. That's what anxiety is. Anxiety, our anxiousness, is worrying not about the present moment, but worrying about the next moments, right? Mm-hmm. Black people are generally have an inclination towards that because of our survival technique. We have to survive, so we have to think ahead often so that we can prepare for what's going to be coming next.
I love that you said that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But go ahead, please continue.
Yeah. And it's actually something, it's not a natural thing. People say, I naturally am like this way. No, we were taught to be this way. Our ancestors had to do it. When we talk about generational learning, generational cycles, and maybe even generational curses, there's some things that have been taught to us so early that we believe that it's natural. And what it is it's second nature, which means that it's been learned, right? We've been taught to be this way. And so we have a higher inclination towards anxious thinking because we have to think ahead in order to stay in a survival mentality, in order to stay alive. And that, again, is challenging when we divide that amongst ourselves and then our little humans that are around us, our children that we have. So we're finding that parents are having more anxious thoughts because they don't know what's going to happen in the school system. We're hearing about the dismantling of the Department of Education. They don't know what to do if their children have special needs or an IEP or a 504 plan. Like, what does this mean for them? They have not understood the politics around their state and what their state's position is on education and in marginalized communities in particular. So there's a lot of unknown. And then we know a lot too, because if you're older than 5 years old, you've lived through a Trump administration before, right? So while you may not remember, you've been here before, right? And so we also have memory that is creating some of this as well. Like, is this going to be expounded upon? Are we going to have more of these negative experiences? And then in the current, we're also hearing things like the Black job, right? And what these people are doing. So we already know that we're our margins, we're going to be pushed further into the margins, and the stereotypes are getting tighter and tighter. And when you release programs like DEI, that somehow makes people think that there's going to be permission to discriminate against us again in the ways that we had years ago, decades before, and such. So there's lots that we're thinking about. I want to highlight, though, that this is why therapy is important. Therapy isn't just important to be talking about whether a person has borderline personality disorder or whether they have major depression disorder. Therapy is important to have these conversations, to be able to talk to somebody like, I am anxious because my child is about to go to college and I don't know what's about to happen when I send them to Florida. I am anxious because I don't know, I have Medicaid and I don't know if my services are going to be taken away from me. I am anxious because, of this reason or that reason. Therapy is the perfect place to be able to process that, to be able to get some of that muck out of your beautiful river of thoughts, your flow of thought. Sometimes rubbish gets in there. Therapy is that place where you could kind of remove it a bit, so you can think through what has to happen next.
All of that is very interesting what you said, but how much is it that I guess what we're anticipating, the anxiety that we're anticipating, is real versus us making it a bit bigger issue than what it is? We can read what's on this website, but should we be worried about the future? Anxious about it?
Anxiousness and anxiety is always thinking about the future and the future of what's unknown. So, as a therapist, no, I don't think people should be anxious about it because it's unknown. We're not there yet. But our ancestors have showed us already that we are equipped for whatever is about to happen. We know we are not going back to slavery, right? And we know that we are not going there. And they have lived and endured through that. And they have taught us how to be in that space and beyond that space. So we already have it in us to be able to survive. The challenge is we feel we have gotten comfortable, right? We have gotten comfortable in ways that we should be comfortable because we're citizens of this country and we built this country. But we've gotten comfortable and now we're about to be uncomfortable again. And so I think but that's part of life. There's moments in our lives where we are comfortable, everything seems to be going, and then we have a health issue, or then we have something to deal with our children. And in those ways, we have to reacclimate ourselves. But we already have the tools. We already have the skills. We already have the techniques. We already have the soul. We already have the spirit. We already have the guidance to make it through these next 4 years. We just have to go back and sharpen those tools. We have to go back and be comfortable with the discomfort again. So no, I would not want somebody to go into anxiousness, and I would not want somebody to worry. But the function of worry as an emotion is for preparation. So if worry is used properly, it becomes the springboard of preparing. Anxiety does not prepare because anxiety is a rumination of thought. It's a hamster on a wheel. The hamster is not doing anything but moving on that wheel. But if you worry, then it's supposed to be a springboard into what do we do next? Let me think strategically about what my options are. Let me think intentionally about what I want to do and how I want it to be done. So no, I would never want anybody to have or lean in on anxiousness or anxiety because that is of the unknown and it is without a plan because it is simply rumination. But worry can be a springboard to creative action plans and strategic plans, including for our individual selves, but also as parents for our families.
No, that's well said. And, it's important that we don't put that anxiousness onto our children as well. And I can remember during the last Trump administration, because of me being a journalist, I had to keep track of everything he did every day. That was the first time I really had to go talk to someone because I had the world on my shoulders and I knew things people weren't paying attention to. So I was like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? And I really did have to go talk to someone because I felt like there was a sense of doom every time I turned around. So I had to be careful not to share that with the younger members of our family, make sure that they understood that, this is something that I have to deal with work because I have to be aware. So how do we as parents handle that situation where we don't give our worry, our anxiety to our children, because they obviously sometimes can see it on our face.
Yeah. This is a conversation that I've had with many parents, and it's really a matter of strategic compartmentalization, right? And so we don't want to compartmentalize to the degree that we dissociate with reality. We don't want to compartmentalize to the degree that we don't prepare our children or be open enough for our children to have conversations with us about what they're experiencing under this political process as well, because they will experience things. They just don't know to connect it to politics. So we don't want to close ourselves off, but we want to be cautious and intentional about how we engage. That means there's certain conversations that should not be happening in the house, right? If I am really frustrated about something, maybe I need to go talk to my book club members about it. Maybe we need to read a book so that we can all process. Maybe we need to read Project 25 and we all need to sit there and dissect it for ourselves as adult women, as parents, as mothers, and what this means. And so we're processing it and we're building a community around our learning and also our sharing. And then we have bite-sized, child-friendly language that we use back with our children. Or we just open it up. When we have our dinner conversations, we ask them, what's going on with school today? What's going on with this person? If you know that there's a child in the classroom who may be from parents who are undocumented, ask about that child. How's that child doing? You don't have to tell them that you're curious because the child is undocumented or that the family is undocumented, but instead you could have a little bit of extra care and intention there. So I think that that it's really a matter of being intentional in the compartmentalization and creating a community where you can talk about it so it's not seeping out in these unhealthy ways to our families. For me, I'm a part of many. I love women, right? I believe in the power of women. And so I am a part of a sorority. I have a book club that's all women. I hang out with the ladies in my neighborhood. We have our monthly meetings. I do things that give me outlets so that when it is time for me to have conversations with my children, I've processed things already and I have an idea of what I want to say to them and how I want to say it. My babies are big now. They'll be 18 and 21 this year. So I have a little experience, right? Almost 2 decades of experience in doing this along with being a therapist. And I know that it's a really delicate line that we walk in that way, but it can be done with intention, with planning, and not with impulsivity.
I love everything you said. Is perfect advice for what we're talking about, how to survive the next 4 years. Now let's talk about school funding, because that directly affects our parents, the kids. We know for a fact that's going to change. The policies are going to change. What types of effects and what should we expect as far as our children's education?
Yeah. The work that I'm in largely sits in special education. And so when I am brought into a school, I'm usually working with a student who maybe has an IEP or has a 504 plan. I'm working with the teachers so the teacher knows how to support that particular student. I'm working with the family so that they know how to support that particular student, because those students are outliers to what we consider the norm, right? So outliers in different type of ways. Oftentimes students that have special needs are geniuses in ways that are not necessarily identified in our traditional school system. When we think about funding, especially under this particular administration, that special education tends to be where there is a lot of focus. What is going to happen with our students that have special needs, that need counseling, that need physical therapy, that need occupational therapy, that need speech and language therapy, that are second language learners? What is going to happen with them? And again, we don't know all of what is going to happen. We know that the funding is going to be shifted and in some cases moved. But what we can be doing as advocates for our children, as families, is that we can go to those schools and start asking them about what their plan is. Now, in this, we have the funding for at least the rest of this school year and likely for next school year, right? So the changes we're talking about are really going to likely happen in 2026. Now, some people are saying it could happen before that, but remember the funding and the budgets were already put in place, right? And so with that, we have a couple months, at least a couple months to a year, to really start thinking about our strategic plans so that we're not just being impulsive. So parents can go to the school and say, hey, I know that this is what the government's plan is. what are you doing on an individual school level to be able to support us? So not necessarily waiting and going to the superintendent or going to your local politicians. Ask the principal, ask the executive director of the school, ask the special education coordinators. And the more they hear those questions from us as parents, they know that we're interested, and they're going to be putting more emphasis and effort in making those policies, in communicating something that's strategic, in communicating something that's intentional, giving that information back to us so that we can then make informed decisions. So that is the difference between the anxiety, like the anxiety of, oh my God, what is about to happen? I don't know, versus taking a worried statement and putting action behind it that can lead to success in the future. Again, our ancestors have already told us what to do. Our grandparents lived through segregation, right? They know how to advocate. They raised a generation that was the first generation to go through integration. They know schools and they know education and they know policies. The timing may be a bit different. Some things may be different, but we already know we have access to our elders right now who can teach us and can show us some things. We just have to go back and ask them.
Yes, let's rely on our elders. They are very valuable in our community, and I like that idea. It is really, really important. Now, here's the thing. When Trump was running, of course, he disavowed Project 2025. We knew that the policies were there and were written for him. Then he adapted most of the policies, a lot of policies, you use whatever word you want. But we know that one of the things that is has been talked about was that if your child goes to public school, they will be automatically drafted into the military. That's the thing. But if your child goes to private school, they get out of that. They get a free get out of the military card, which means poorest children are automatically going to be sent to war, military, without their choice. It's not their choice. If you go to public school, that's how you pay your debt back, basically.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that for people who are listening. I don't think that's fair at all. It's classism, basically, it comes down to. But those are the kind of things that are weighing heavily on parents' minds, and like how do not only the parents deal with their mental well-being with these types of things, but what about the children who are old enough to know this is coming?
Yeah, I mean, that's so on point. My son is 17. He'll be 18 in a couple months, and he will be going to college in Florida, right? He's committed to Florida A&M, and he pays attention to politics just like we do in our house. And so he came to me one day and was like, Mom, I'm going to get drafted. And I was like, okay, son, talk to me about where you got that information from, how you're processing it, what you're thinking about it with. Now, keep in mind, he's the son of a therapist, right? So we already, we are laying out feelings. Where is your feeling wheel? What is the feeling that you have on this? What is the correlated thought that you have on this? What's showing up in your body? So he knows the process already, but it really became a position of worry for him. Like, I don't want to go into the military. And there's nothing wrong with the military. Let me say that I'm a veteran of the United States Army. My father is a career soldier, also a veteran. And we have very different experiences with him being a Black man and me being a Black woman in the military. It's a challenge for my son because it's not what he wants to do, right? So I shifted the conversation a bit in terms of where is his current power. Right now, we don't know when this is going to be put in place. Now, the selective service has always been there, right? The moving forward with it has not. So that's where people have gotten confused. But men have always, when they turn 18, they are checking on that selective service. So that has always been in place. That's not new. What is new is this expectation that they're going to serve in the military. And that's a largely political and economic reason, because people are not joining the military as they once did, because many of our generation X and those that are a bit older than us are still here, and they are seeing the ramifications of war and trauma that comes with war. So it's turning off the young folks. With that being said, we shifted the conversation to where his power is, right? There's many things that he doesn't have power in. A draft may not be where he has the power, but he does have power in other places. So until this is put in place, where are you going to use your power? Are you going to go to college? How are you going to use your college education? Are you going to continue to dream? What do your dreams look like? What does your hope look like? How do we stay present in this moment while also thinking about the future? As the policy gets closer, if it gets closer, then we'll have deeper conversations around how we strategically move and plan around a draft. But right now, that is not affecting you in this moment. In this moment, you have to finish your chemistry test so that you could go and get into your college and you can go and have a good college experience and have fun. And when we get closer to that time, we will talk about that at that time. That also buys me time as a parent to understand what he's thinking about and for me to process my own thoughts and feelings while also processing his thoughts and feelings so that when we do come together and have another conversation, it is a bit more robust. I can do my research, I can have my education, and I can contribute and add that to his experiences as well.
That's perfect answer for a young person. I really like how you handle that with your son. Now, the other part of the cuts are the Pell Grants, right? Because Department of Education goes away. How do we even encourage our children when we're not being able to afford college or universities because the prices have gone astronomically up, since over decades. And now, Pell Grants, those types of rewards have helped, not even to mention affirmative action, have helped Black students to get into some of the top universities where they could shine. And now we're going back to where we once were, where you could get discriminated against, because you came from an area where maybe the school systems weren't that great, but you have shown promise in everything you do. And so many people have achieved and done well going through school and affirmative action. And now the Pell Grants aren't there. So, what are parents to tell their kids? What are we to do?
Yes, absolutely. You're going to be like, Dr. Plummer, you are nothing but a broken record, right? But what I'm going to say is, have we talked to our elders who have already lived through this, right? So I benefited from Pell Grants. I grew up in poverty, and my family didn't have a lot of money. And then I went to go live with my father, who was in the military. And while the military is stable, it doesn't necessarily give you a large salary because they pay for other things like your health care and your housing and things like that. So I benefited from having a Pell Grant. Because I knew that the Pell Grant was an option for me, it probably also limited me from going back and looking at other scholarship options, right? It probably prevented me from using networks and resources that were accessible to me because I was dependent on the Pell Grant. But now that we have this next generation that may not have access to the Pell Grant and may not have access to federal funding when it comes to their education, this is really an opportunity to go back to what our ancestors did. Who in our community is offering scholarships? Who in our neighborhoods are offering support? How are we diversifying those kind of experiences as well? Are we also utilizing the resources that are available to us? Many states have free community college or reduced community college, and they go to the community college for a year or two before they go to university, which then means that they are able to save some money. They're able to still get a college experience and get the education. They're able to form networks and friendships and community and still go back to university. So a lot of these things are going to affect us, but it just means that we have to move differently. When we think about our ancestors who went to the different PWIs or they went to the HBCUs, how did they do it? We have to go back into our history and use some of those skills. The hammer is still there. The screwdriver is still there. We just have to clean off that dust, take off that tarnish, sharpen it up, and get ready to use it again. We've set some of our tools to the side because we've gotten comfortable. And it's okay. We should be comfortable. Again, I'm emphasizing we should be comfortable because this is our country. But we recognize that we are about to be in an uncomfortable situation again. So go back to the skills and the tools and the resources that our ancestors gave us. We're not starting at ground zero. We don't need to recreate a wheel. We have it already. It's time to get on that bike and use that wheel.
I love the term uncomfortable because, we have become comfortable, as we should, And there's so many people that just don't want us to be comfortable. I don't understand why, because we've done
Right.
nothing to them.
Exactly.
But it's very sad that we have to even go through this again. I foresee a lot of families starting to cohabitate together
Yeah.
because the times are it's going to get harder. We have cuts to Medicaid, so our older citizens, those that are still around and can educate us, they're going to have a hard time. Social Security, if it gets cut, if it ever gets passed, that they can cut it or take it, which I don't see, and if it does, I'm going to be shocked, but it could happen
Yeah.
because that's what they've been trying to get at for I don't know decades now. I remember this for a while.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we're going to have people who need to like 2, 3 families in one house, maybe even just to
Yeah.
survive. Not even talking about the grocery prices. Let's not even go there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I bought like 7 things at the grocery store yesterday, and it was $75. So if everything on
Exactly.
average costs approximately $10, like, now what are we going to do? You know what I mean? So then I didn't even have that many bags. I love how the grocery clerks though would like to put one thing in each bag to make me look like I got a lot of stuff, but that doesn't work. When you actually calculate it. So I think that's something they tell them to do now. I'm not sure if somebody could chime in if they work at Kroger's or Publix or something. Let me know. But how we got to stay sane during this whole thing. If they cut things like Medicare, ACA, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, and we don't have the insurance to get the medical health care, what do we
Yeah.
do? How do we
Yeah.
change that?
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to the conversation, the point that you made earlier, folks really need to be making sure that we are reading what is in Project 2025 and we're reading what Trump has outlined as his plan, because then we can start preparing for it. I'm 44 years old, right? And I know that at some point my family has a history of joint issues. My family has a history of joint issues. And so because I'm a woman, so I know the likelihood of osteoporosis for me. So at 44, I already do things that I need to do in order to make sure that I'm living a healthy life when I become 64, when I become 84, maybe possibly 104, right? So that includes my stretching, that includes my walking, that includes making sure I'm drinking enough water, that includes replacing maybe a glass of juice for a glass of water or for some tea. It means that I'm drinking my tea at night so that I could get a good sleep. It's all of these preventative aspects that's there. Now, for some of our elders, there's some things that they are in the midst of right now. They are currently dealing with cancer. They're currently dealing with hypertension. They're currently dealing with diabetes. And in those situations, we really need to think about what we can do, right? Where our power is, and then instead of spending so much time complaining about what is about to be taken away, look at what is there and how we are going to use that. And then for some of us and ourselves and our elders and our children who are not yet in a need where they have to have so much medical care, we start to live a preventative lifestyle. How do I take care of myself now so I don't need that? I have asthma. And so because I know I have asthma, I have a backup inhaler. But what am I doing on a daily basis to increase my lung capacity so I'm not dependent on this inhaler, so I don't run out of the inhaler, so I have to go and spend money to update my prescription and get a new inhaler, or take time off of work to go to the doctor to get a new prescription, right? Like, what can I be doing on a daily basis? That may include that I'm walking slowly and then I have a brisk moment within that walk, and I do it in intervals, right? It may mean that I am paying attention in those moments where maybe I want to, with my friends, have a cigar, that I don't have that cigar because I know the effects that it's going to have on my lungs. So it means that I have to change my lifestyle in some preventative ways. Now, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be mad about the things that are happening. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be frustrated and angry. I am not disillusioned. I am a Virgo. I sit in reality every day, but I also sit in solution-focused thinking as opposed to problem-focused thinking. So once I identify the problem, I don't need to stew on it, right? I don't need to make it more. I need to see what the problem is and step right into a solution. Use my mind and the power that I have in those moments or in those situations to create a solution. And we can all do that, especially as parents. We are we are solution based, right? Like we solve problems every day. The child can't find the pink sock, so now we tell them to go get the orange sock. We see solutions, right? We fix the problems all the time. So it's just that we have to use those same skills of being problem solvers and solution focused in another area of our life where we have gotten a little bit comfortable and accustomed. Again, it's okay to be comfortable. We're supposed to be comfortable. It's our nation. We built this nation, but what the Trump administration is showing us is that they're about to make us uncomfortable. So instead of letting them be in full control of our discomfort, why don't we read what's out there and start planning some solutions so that the discomfort doesn't have to control us in those ways?
Right. And you don't have to read the whole thing. They have it summarized pretty much for you on almost any website you go to. But, as far as the elders and saying, they have to use what's there. What is there if you take away the ACA? What is there if you take away their Medicaid, their Social Security? What is there? That part doesn't look too promising to me with a lot of solutions. Well, so those are the kind of things that would concern me as a caregiver, especially in the sandwich generation when you're caring for your parents and your own children.
Yeah, there's many of us. I get the opportunity as a doctor and of course healthcare to be able to have conversations and build community with other Black folks that are doing similar work. And there's quite a few of us that have been offering and will be offering pro bono services or sliding scale services. There's many physicians who, when asked, will be willing to do those things. And those are some of the same things that made us last in the generations that came before, right? When we were living in segregation or we were living in more isolation, we had doctors who were given slided scales. Now you have to be honest. If you can afford $10, pay the $10, right? Now, if you can't afford the $10, then go ahead and have that conversation. So we did not always have access to insurance. Our elders did not always have access to insurance, but that didn't necessarily mean that it was detrimental. Of course, the lifespan changed, right? I'm not disillusioned here that some of our elders did not live as long as we are living now. But that's a lot of additional factors that were at place too. So I would say go to your providers and ask them about their sliding scale policy, ask them about their pro bono policy. Think about the community organizations that are nearby. Have conversations, vulnerable conversations with your neighbors and your friends, because they may have access to someone or a resource that you don't know about yet, and ask those questions and do those things. What I know for sure, and it's not all Black people. I don't want to have this monolithic perspective here, but Black people will take care of us ourselves, right? Like we will look out. We are community oriented people. It's in our soul and in our spirit. And so we will help each other. And although we live in this capitalistic society and we've gotten comfortable in this capitalistic society, the soul of who we are is community oriented. And so ask within the community, seek within the community, and never feel ashamed to ask for a favor, right? To do some bartering. I'll make your Thanksgiving pies if you see my mama 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, ask and see what can happen there.
I love that. And yeah, I was just about to say the community, because that's what made us strong in the 50s and 60s, that we stuck together as a community. And so we have to go back to that even more. So we're doing it now. We saw us start to come together during like Black Lives Matter even more. And then, things changed, but we start sticking together as a community. So I see this next 4 years as kind of a regrowth of that. Yes. Of us sticking together and also supporting Black businesses like we used to. Yes. We have to not just say, oh, I support Black businesses and I started this hashtag on New Year's Eve, like buy Black everything, because these companies cannot survive these next 4 years without your help. So you need to buy their products and show that you're buying it and share it with people. But I'm so glad you said the community. Let's stick with the community, stick together. And help each other. And the bartering and the sliding scales are going to be imperative. And I really hope that so many of our doctors will join in with that and help their patients and community, knowing that these things are going to be severely cut, because otherwise it would be tragic if not. Let's just talk a little bit about, we have like 5 minutes left, but I want to talk about some of the immigration policies, because we do have a lot of parents that come over from different countries brothers like Haiti or Dominican Republic, whatever, that are not necessarily African American or part of the diaspora, but they're going to face some immigration issues.
Yeah.
And then you have separation of families, the mental health issues that can just come from being concerned about that if they're not quite legal yet, or that they were talking about even children who were born here. And I saw something where even naturalized citizens were at risk. What do we do? How do you manage that? The only thing I go back to is like times of slavery when parents were split up from their families. What advice would you give, I guess is what I'm asking, to these families that this is just sitting there in front of them, and they have to deal with it? I know you can't deal with it until it happens, but what can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to preface by saying the way I'm answering this question is very logical. I am a therapist, and so I spend a lot of my day in the midst of emotions with my clients. So while I answer this question, I want to make sure that I am acknowledging that I'm not negating the emotions that come along with this. But from a logical and a logistical perspective, there's a few things that we need to be considering. One, for children, we really need to be tightening up the experiences that we have with them. If there's a possibility that one of the family members, excuse me, will be sent back, if you will, deported to their home country, what are the moments and the memories that we're creating with the children now? We know that children, their trajectory for success relies on a lot of the early childhood moments they have. Well, from a therapeutic perspective, cognitive perspective, the ways we think, the patterns that we think are derived from the experiences that we had as children. The way that we defend ourselves, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, comes from the experiences that we have as children. The way that we engage with other people come from an attachment style that we have and that we get as children. So the emphasis, while we may have concern and worry about what is going to happen later in 2025 or in 2026 or 27, 28, what are you doing with your child today? Are you taking 15 minutes and sitting down and playing Uno? Are you playing Phase 10? Are you teaching them the recipes that are important that need to be passed down from one generation to the next generation? Are you hugging them and kissing them and relaxing their nervous system? Are you yourself taking a walk any moment you can, even if it's just a 5-minute walk around your house or your apartment complex? Are you doing something for you to keep yourself down? There's many things that are going to happen in the future. Anxiety and anxiousness tells us that that is in the future and we can't do anything about it until it comes to our doorstep. But right now, what are you doing to create these memories for your children and giving them the strongest foundation? We know that those who deal with grief the best are those who have the most solid foundation. So if there is a separation that occurs, did you create the solid foundation for your child to be able to be resilient so that when you all get reunited, God willing, there will be a moment of reunification, that you all can connect easily? Or is the process so separated and the relationship so tattered now that you can't bounce back and the children are going to have a hard time bouncing back? As a therapist, my thought is turn off that TV and play a game with your child. Get off the phone, text messages, social media, and read a book with your child. Go sit in the kitchen together instead of going out and grabbing something to eat. Maybe take a couple of those dollars and make some special rice at home, right? Or make a special meal or something at home, and you all do that together in the kitchen. How are the conversations happening? Now, that's not the solution for how we're going to handle the whole immigration policy. I'm not a politician. I don't know how all of that's going to work. But as a therapist, I have to think about what needs to happen in this present moment so that we could be able to be prepared and have a strong foundation so that we could be resilient for the next moment, the moment we don't know yet. Now, if that moment never comes, guess what? You still have kids that are foundationally strong, they're resilient, they can handle things. And if that moment does happen, you still have that child that is foundationally strong and resilient and can handle things as well.
No, I appreciate the disclaimer. We know it's coming because that's been on the forefront of their entire plan.
Right.
But it is heartbreaking to think that the only thing we can do is build their resilience and memories. that breaks my heart. And I know you gave the disclaimer ahead of time, but it still breaks my heart for all of the families that are going to go have to deal with this when the time comes. And I wish there was more we could do. And I hate that's the only thing we can say is that I wish there's more we can do when that time comes, because there was more that we could have done, but we didn't. So
there was a lot that we could have done.
There's that.
I'm a part of the 92. I don't have any problem saying out loud, I am part of the 92% of Black women that voted for Kamala Harris, right? But I can't be responsible for the whole world. And as a Black woman, I've already taken on a lot of that. And like you said, when you were writing and living, having your career under the first Trump administration, you carried a lot on your shoulder. We can only do but so much. And so that's where we have to now sit back and think, instead of spreading ourselves so thin, how do we keep that close? And how do we do that with our children? How do we do that with our families? How do we do that with our communities? To the point you made before, Janice, and I think we're running out of time. I'm sorry. But as you said that before, and I've talked about my community with my neighbors, and my community with my book club, and my community with my sorority members, my community with the Bow Collective. Let's be preventative and start thinking about community. Our ancestors made it because of community. They relied on each other. They gathered. They leaned in on each other. They shared resources. They shared thought. They built community. Let's go back to building community. That is part of the blueprint of survival.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Plummer, thank you for being on the show, but tell our listeners where they can go to learn more about your work and the resources offered by Onyx Therapy Group, because I think they are going to need to know these types of resources, especially you being a Black-owned therapist. And oh my gosh, Black-owned therapy group is what I was trying to say. They're going to need these services. So let them know where to find you.
Yes, my team, we are all Black, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that doesn't mean we discriminate against other therapists, but we're here for the Black community 100%. No holds barred about it. But I can simply be found by putting my name in your search engine. So if you put my name, Dr. Lynnell R. Plummer, or just Lynnell or Lynnell Plummer, you'll see many different ways that I've shown up for the community, articles that I'm a part of, my TED Talk, the book that's coming out, many different resources. Specific to Onyx, you could go to our website. It is simply Onyx, Onyx, and that was strategic. Onyx is a beautiful Black crystal that has the power of transformation. So that is what we believe therapy is. So go to onyxtherapygroup.com. You will see me. You will see my other therapists. You can pick your therapist, right? We have that option, that empowerment that's there. But for me, put my name in your local search engine. And for Onyx, you can do the same, or you could specifically go to our website, Onyx Therapy Group. We also have our podcast on all streaming devices, which is Onyx Therapy Group. We're also on YouTube, and you put in Onyx Therapy Group. We're also on LinkedIn, and you put in my name, or you put in Onyx Therapy Group. We're also on Instagram, and you can put in my name, or you can put in Onyx Therapy Group. So we keep it rather simple, Onyx Therapy Group or Dr. Lynnell Plummer. And again, if you want to be a mental health provider and you think you want to go back to school, please reach out to me too. I love to train folks who are ready to be therapists and to heal our communities.
Okay. And you do provide online services?
Oh, absolutely. We provide online services.
There you go. You have your
and we provide sliding scales and pro bono. So don't come around here telling me you can't afford insurance. We are paneled with all the major insurances. And if that doesn't work, we do offer pro bono and sliding scales and payment plans and anything else we need to offer to make sure that you are getting the therapy that you need.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Plummer, for this wonderful information. I'm sure we all learned a lot. Guys, feel free to leave comments afterwards, as well as, during any live show, and we'll always be happy to answer your questions. We didn't get any questions. We are at a different time today. Usually we're live Thursdays at 11 a.m., guys, Eastern time. So keep that in mind. But thank you again for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. So happy. And I'm happy to be here for the community as well.
And stay tuned after, because I'll tell you how to get the video. Okay. All right. And a big shout out to all of you tuning in and engaging with us here at Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We are the syndicated podcast that's a must for Black parents everywhere. And be sure you follow us on social media. I mean, click on everything, follows, likes, ads. But most importantly, I want to remind you to all go to our website. You can register right now for our National Black Parenting Conference online. It's less than a month away, February 7th and 8th. The more you engage with us, the more we all can thrive, because then we'll be here to provide this information that you can choose from. You pick and choose what parenting information you want to take and run with, because you are the parent. But until next time, I wish you all the best and much success. So take care, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.